Murder of Harvey Dent.
I'm sorry.
And
I didn't record.
nice. Hey, at least we had a good warm up for the conversation.
Hi guys. Today we're doing a Dark Knight review. We got Brett here with us. We got Luke here with us. And well, let's just jump into the video. Fuck! I was like looking because I was wondering how much we recorded, and then I saw 0, 0, 0, 0. I was like, wait, what?
Nice.
Fuck it. Okay.
Nice.
But since we've already more or less started this discussion, let's head from the beginning.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
what? How did we start this?
Well, I mean, exactly what you said before. You were like, where do we start?
Yeah.
And it's such a big movie.
Mm.
Yes, obviously, did you hit record yet?
Yeah, it's on record now for sure. I promise.
Perfect.
This time
Perfect.
we
Perfect.
record.
Just, I mean, where to start with a movie like this is like you can go all the way back in the beginning of the superhero genre itself. I mean, superheroes when they were in films and television in the beginning were not taken seriously. They were very goofy. We had the George Reeves show and those older Batman serials, which you should watch if you haven't seen those. They're hilarious to go back and rewatch.
I think they're
Honestly,
like Amazon Prime. I've watched like the first season of it. They are actually quite good.
yeah, they're really funny. I enjoy it. And then we lead into the '66 show of Batman, which made the character of Batman from a silly comic book character to a pop culture icon. Now everyone knows who Batman is because of Adam West and Burt Ward. Everyone knows who that character is. Even non-hardcore fans, like who are in their 60s, will tell you that they watched that show when they were younger.
Yeah.
And fast forward to the Superman 78, where this was the movie that really springboarded the superhero genre into audiences that didn't really have an interest in it are now taking superheroes and films seriously because of Christopher Reeve's performance as Superman. It was more or less it was a fun movie, but it took itself seriously.
Yeah.
Same as Batman '89. Those two movies really helped the superhero genre come into its own as something that's going to stay for a really long time. And filmmakers were really attracted to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Batman franchise died with George Clooney and Val Kilmer and all the goofiness, and audiences were like, okay, I guess Batman is stupid. Christopher Nolan was like, no, he's not, because I'm going to make him badass again. And which brings us to Batman Begins, which I would just like to point out, like, in the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises, very similar in style movies. But Batman Begins, I think, is a very different movie just from the way it looks compared to The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. And not a bad thing at all, because I really love Batman Begins, and I think that movie pretty much not only made audiences take superheroes more seriously than they ever had before in the past, but it more or less also changed the film industry. Like, after Batman Begins came out, pretty much every movie after that needed to be dark and gritty.
Yeah, and also like, I mean, it's pretty obvious that without the Dark Knight trilogy, movies like, you know, the DCU, the DCU really built on the box office from the Dark Knight trilogy because it went so fucking well.
Absolutely.
And I don't think we would have seen Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman if Christopher Nolan wouldn't have done such a
Not
great
at all.
job. So
Not at all.
fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason Batman Begins was like so different was because basically it was less about telling the story, more about building his world and building all the characters and stuff. But there's still like a sense of story in it.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Dark Knight trilogy films are what I think people love about them so much, myself included, is because they're about characters. It's about relationships between these people and their story from beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
and it's a very personal story between them, and it makes you care about the people first, so that you can care even more when they start putting on the makeup or the costumes and start punching things. Like most of the most memorable moments for me in this trilogy are the scenes between the people and not the action scenes. And the action scenes are fantastic, but when I think of Batman Begins, I think of him training with the League of Shadows, or I think of that scene of him and and Rachel when he first comes back to Gotham. When I think of the Dark Knight, I think of the interrogation scene in the Dark Knight Rises. But you get what I'm saying. I mean, there's just so many great moments between these characters that really just springboards my love for these movies than I would have if the characters weren't as good.
I agree totally. I just yeah, it's very fantastic, and I feel like the Dark Knight have compared to Batman Begins, the Dark Knight really has outstanding action scenes as well. But I don't focus that much on the action scenes because, as you said, like the interrogation scene or just the the Joker's interaction with the mafia, or when he burns cash, it's
Yeah.
it's much better than any of the action scenes really. And that's also something I think Nolan have focused more on than anything other. Like he focused a lot on the effects, obviously, like when the Joker blows up in a hospital and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
when it came to action, he more or less understood that, like, he could prioritize. He didn't have to prioritize the action of an action movie or a superhero movie, which I feel like is very uncommon, to be honest, and it's not something we see very often. Not in like the MCU, for example, or in the new DCU. Like, for me, many of the most memorable scenes are action scenes in the new ones. But as you said, in the Dark Knight trilogy, it feels more like the interrogations with the character or interactions with the characters are much better, really.
Yeah,
Right.
like in an interview once, like Christopher Nolan said when he was making the films, he didn't want to make it like a superhero film. Like when you think of a superhero film, you're gonna think that they're doing unrealistic things and everything. But he wanted people to walk away and just kind of think, "Wow, that was a good film," instead of saying, "Wow, that was a good superhero film."
Mm.
Yeah, and I think that's why audiences are so taken by these movies, is that they it feels like Goodfellas, or it feels like
Mm.
Taxi Driver, and or with a superhero put in the middle of it. Like The Dark Knight is almost like a cop show, but Batman's in the middle of it,
Yeah.
and I think that's the appeal to it. I mean, the thing about The Dark Knight, what I love the most about it, and I think what makes it my favorite in the trilogy, is the fact that every character's motivations is 100% clear. You know where everybody's coming from, and you know what they want. You know what they, like what the obstacles are that are in their way in order for them to get what they want. And sometimes characters get what they want, and sometimes it's taken away from them. And there are moments where it's really hard to watch in The Dark Knight. Like, Harvey Dent's fall is very, very well written and very well acted by Aaron Eckhart, who I think is very underrated in the movie. I think he had a ton to play, and I think his character arc is probably the most engaging. How
Mm.
he just goes from Gotham's White Knight to this whatever he turns into at the end. I mean, Two Face. He goes from the White Knight to literally Two Face at the
Yeah,
end of the movie, and who's about to kill a child in front of their father. I mean, there's some very heavy stuff, and it's played very well. And I think it just is a testament to Chris Nolan's writing and his directing skills. But again, Aaron Eckhart's acting performance is very, very good in this, and I don't think people talk about him as much.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree. To me, it almost felt like Harvey Dent literally just died with Rachel, because he almost entirely changed his persona. We kind of see the Two-Face persona in Harvey Dent as well, but it feels like the half of him that was Harvey Dent more or less just dies with him or with her, if I can say so, in a way.
Oh, I agree.
yeah.
I agree. His acting and how he delivered the character was just phenomenal. Really.
Exactly. I mean, anybody that didn't really know Batman before this movie, nobody really cared about Two-Face. I mean, you can argue that a lot of Batman fans, love the character from the animated series, or because that show did a great job with their Two-Face character as well. But people that were just kind of sort of into Batman are like, well, what's the deal with Two-Face? He's like, it's Two-Face. He flips a coin. What's so great about that? But this movie really took that character and was like, no, this character is a very tragic character, and they played it very, very well, very well. The makeup, or not the makeup, but the CGI work that they did for Two-Face still holds up today. Like, it still looks like a real thing. And I remember I used to think it was makeup, and when I found out it was CGI, it kind of blew me away, because it was very convincing stuff. Very convincing.
Yeah.
Like, it was.
Oh, sorry. You go.
Okay. Yeah, it was like one of the first films where they could actually, like, you could always add to someone's face in CGI or with makeup, but it was one of the first films that they actually managed to subtract from someone's face, and you saw, like, the muscles moving and everything. Like, the stuff that they had to do that was really hard. Like, I know they had tracking dots in his face that the main camera couldn't see, but another camera could see, so they could use that to do it, and then they applied it to the main camera shot. Like, it was just really smart, and people think that he hates visual effects and he prefers practical. It's like, they're not completely wrong, but like, it's because he knows how to use them and knows when to use them, not just, I'm lazy, I'm just gonna do that in post. He knows when to use them, and he knows how to do it realistically.
Yeah, and Nolan
Exactly.
is so much more than like just a director. As already stated, he's a writer. He's a producer as well. So I know, for example, in Tenet, there's this one scene where a plane is supposed to crash into a building, and
Great scene.
yeah, and he as a producer, he obviously looked at the financial and said, it would be cheaper if we just crashed a real plane into the building instead of, well, doing it in CGI. So why not do it, And they actually did. They sabotaged an entire plane just for that one scene.
Oh yeah.
Which I really appreciate with the, as you said, he's not lazy. He thinks in the big picture and not the small one, which I really love.
Yeah.
Well, it keeps his movies grounded when he chooses to go practical. When he's one of those directors where it's like, if he can do it practically, he's gonna do it, because again, it's cheaper, but also it's going to make your audience feel like this is actually happening, versus if it's just a CGI thing.
Yeah.
Audiences are pretty able to tell when something is done fake or when something is real and it's authentic. And pretty much all of his movies, when I see big stuff like that happening, I can tell it's real. Therefore, I'm just going to care about it more, because it grounds the movie. It keeps it from looking dated. Like, this movie's 13 years old this year.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
This movie is 13 years old, and the truck flip over, the whole chase scene with the Joker and the tumbler and the bat pod and all that stuff and all those explosions going on, that all still holds up.
Yeah.
And I think it's due to Christopher Nolan's great eye when he has to use CGI with, like, the helicopter falling over, but or when he can use practical effects, the truck flipping. He has a great balance and knowledge of when to use both. And I think that's why a movie like this is going to hold up more so than a movie like Batman versus Superman or something like that. I'm not hating or anything like that. It's just an example that comes into my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure that, like, what other director would do this, whereas in, like, Christopher Nolan built a hospital set to blow it up. Like, that scene was practical. Like, what other, like, director would build an actual hospital just to blow it up?
Not a lot of modern day directors, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Like, not a lot of up and coming filmmakers. And that's probably due to the fact is a lot of studios probably wouldn't let a lot of up and coming directors do that unless you are Christopher Nolan and have made a name for yourself and is going to be like, hey, I want to blow up a hospital. And the studios are like, okay, you've made us billions of dollars before. We're going to do what you want to do because you seem to know what you're doing. But yeah, no, I think that's just one of the main reasons why this movie is still held up very well. It's just a very well made movie, very well directed, well written. All those things. Most people just go to Heath Ledger's performance, and he's great, but really got to take into account the filmmaking as well and what Christopher Nolan did to make this movie great. I think it's just what's that phrase like it's once in a lifetime movie. It's a once in a lifetime movie where it was everybody right place at the right time. It was the right directors, the right cast, the right situation, and it changed the comic book movie industry and it in some ways really influenced the film industry as well.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, David, I don't think movies like Man of Steel or Batman v Superman would have been made if it wasn't for The Dark Knight, or even The Amazing Spider-Man. Like, that movie's really dark, and it's because at that time people were really into a darker superhero movie because of The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And then The Avengers comes out, and that's why The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was more lighthearted. So all of these movies that came out after The Dark Knight were directly influenced by it because of how taken the audience was by this movie. Absolutely. Is there anything we don't like about it?
No, not anything that comes to mind immediately. Really.
I have to think, really. It's really hard to say something I don't like, but I think I'd have to say not the action sequence, but the fighting sequences. But I think they're much better in this movie than they are in Batman Begins, because in Batman Begins they kind of just move the camera and everything is motion blur and everyone lays on the ground, because that's how Nolan wanted to portray the action scenes. He wanted it to be from the villain's point of view. It goes very fast and then you're down on the ground.
Right.
But I think that suit wasn't practical at all, because he had to move his head like this.
Exactly.
But in the Dark Knight, it was much smoother, I'd say. And the car chasing scenes are just fantastic. Yeah, they are incredible. They are very good.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like, he basically reinvented the Joker. Like, the Joker before this, even though 1989 Batman, it was still dark, Joker was still kind of silly and everything. Whereas in The Dark Knight, no, he is a sociopath, serial killer. He will kill you if you get in his way. He will say psychopathic things without any remorse. He stabbed someone with a pencil to death and just didn't care at all. He's killed countless innocents, didn't care. And it's not, he's a clown, he's just psychopathic. Like, he's not the silly version that everyone knows him as.
Yeah. And I think, like, because we all know that Nolan tried to make his comic book world as realistic as possible. Of course, everything isn't realistic, but it's still realistic enough for you to believe that it's realistic,
Yeah.
If you can say that.
That it's all happening.
Yeah. And I feel like if you were going to make the Joker realistic in any way, he would be an anarchist, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're going to put that, just crazy lunatic in a realistic world as the Joker, I think an anarchist is the perfect way to portray him, because he simply just don't care. He just loves chaos, more or less.
Like, like, he did not care who was on the boats. He just said, blow them up. If they blow you up, or you all die. Basically, like, he's playing with their minds. Like, he just doesn't give a crap about who he's talking to, basically.
Well, that's the thing about the Joker that is so great. Like, we've had great interpretations from different actors like Jack Nicholson or Mark Hamill, Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix, and they all bring something unique and different to this character, while also still like bringing justice to that character.
Yeah.
Like, each version still feels like the Joker, even though they're all very different. I think that's just what makes the character so great. And I think what Heath did that was so great was he made the Joker really unpredictable, really scary, And it's because in every single scene he's in, he has the power over everybody else. Even when he's captured by, Gotham City PD, and he's in the interrogation room with Batman, and then Batman leaves, and he's gonna get in a fight with the one detective guy. He has the power. He knows he has the power in every scene. Nobody has power over this character in this movie, and I think that's just what's so great about the character. And I don't think that was an accident by Chris Nolan. I think that's exactly what he wanted the Joker to be, like this exact what the Joker says when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. And the Joker is an immovable object in this movie. Once he's there, and you might be able to physically beat him, but you're not going to beat him mentally.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like psychologically.
Yeah.
Batman could outsmart him, but Joker could probably, especially this version, Joker could probably, like, I don't know if outthink him is the right word, but it's see, it's crazy. It's a psychological game, and that's what the whole interrogation scene was to me. Like that scene, in the interrogation, in my opinion, is what won or gave Heath Ledger his Oscar. In my opinion, he's just breaking down Batman's psyche so carefully. He's breaking down his psyche so carefully, and laying out why the both of them need each other. Because if which makes it all the more sad how Heath Ledger just tragically passed away. I don't know if Nolan had plans to continue with Heath in the role.
Yeah.
I'm not really aware of that, if that's all true, but it would have been amazing.
Yeah.
I think if Heath Ledger hadn't have passed, if he hadn't have passed, then he would have definitely been in Dark Knight Rises, because he's always like 3 steps ahead. He would have showed up, and he probably would have had Bane working for him. He probably would have had everyone working for him. He probably would have made the bomb, but obviously that's way, meaning that he couldn't be in it.
From what I've read, there was supposed to be a like, because there was not an original script for it, but there was an original idea for him. He would go through the judge system, and just like the justice system, more or less, and he would have a cameo. But since he wasn't there, they wrote in the I think it's the Batman Dark Knight Rises novel that every patient from Arkham got transferred into Blackgate when Bane took over the city, because they didn't want lunatics out on the streets, more or less.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally agree, and with what you were saying, and one thing that comes in mind for me is when literally all the big bads of Gotham sits in the same room in the Dark Knight, and the Joker just pulls up, and as you said, Luke, he just kills someone with a pencil, but no one dares to do a shit. And then they're saying like, "Oh, we're going to kill you now," or something like that. They're trying to do something, but he's already one step ahead. Got his whole jacket filled up with grenades and all that shit, and says, "I don't care. I'll blow us all up. I don't really give a fuck."
Mm-hmm.
And that's just something I really love, because at the same time as you get the feeling that he just goes with the flow, it still feels like he has a plan, even though he says himself, "Do I look like someone with a plan? I'm just doing whatever the fuck I'm doing." It's such a good mixture that you don't know what you want to believe, really. Which I just love it. It works so well.
That's what makes him so unpredictable. Is like he says he doesn't have a plan. He just does things, but we still don't really know.
Yeah.
And like you don't know if he's telling the truth or if he's lying or not. And I think that's the point. Like Nolan doesn't want us to know everything that's going on with the Joker. He doesn't want us to know that. He wants us to keep asking questions. He wants it to be unpredictable. And I think that's what makes character of the Joker in this film very memorable and very scary. And Heath Ledger's performance is obviously, just one of the best in movies. He just completely disappears into this role. You don't see Heath Ledger anywhere. You just see
Hmm.
this version of the Joker coming off screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very, very well done. I will say there's only a handful of things that I don't not necessarily don't like, but things that I prefer in maybe the other movies, like say the look of Gotham in this film.
Mm.
Let's compare that to the look of Gotham in Batman Begins. And in Batman Begins, it's very grimy, it's dirty, it's run down. It's basically raining in like every scene at night. It's you got like that kind of orangey color palette, which makes it feel even more disgusting and gritty. That to me is like my favorite look of Gotham in any of the Batman movies. It's just so, but it also feels really big. It feels huge, and it looks like a different place to me. Whereas in The Dark Knight, it almost looks completely like completely almost Chicago.
Yeah.
Like I can immediately tell like this doesn't feel like Gotham completely to me. It just feels like Batman in Gotham City, which is fine. It still feels grounded, still feels realistic, but it still feels like just Chicago to me than a different location, which
Yeah.
is it's not the end of the world. It's not like it's a thing that completely bugs me. Like now all of a sudden the movie's like a 7 out of 10, then a 10 out of 10. Like I can definitely get used to it. It's just one movie has a look of Gotham that I prefer over the other.
Mm.
That's basically all it is.
I think that's a bit of the point as well in one way, since in Batman Begins everything is, Gotham is at its worst point ever, really, and we got Carmine Falcone like ruling the entire city, and we got Crane poisoning everything. We got the League of Shadows coming over there, and then Batman just bam, Carmine Falcone in prison, bam, Crane in prison or asylum, and bam, Rachel Ghoul dies, and after that they mentioned in the beginning of Dark Knight that everything is better, but there's also this huge crime mob gang. But I think it's supposed to symbolize that Gotham has been cleaned up more than it is in Batman
Sure.
Begins.
Yeah.
I
Even
can
though
get
I
behind that.
agree,
Yeah.
I like the more dark and dirty and disgusting Gotham City. I prefer that one as well. But it didn't really feel like the same town to me. It almost felt like the change was a bit too huge in a way.
Sure.
But I agree with what you were saying. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and you made a really good point about it as well. Yeah, for sure. Is it just me, or has the character of Rachel never been the most interesting to me?
Not
Yeah.
not to me either, really.
She's kind of seen as like a background character who, oh no, everyone just kind of forgot about her, so let's just kind of blow her up. But she played a part in her death. Like,
Well, she was.
it wasn't
She
just
was.
gonna randomly, like, just blow her up. No, she had meaning to her death. So it was like, we don't really need her anymore, but let's give her like a purpose to her death, which is what made Two-Face.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely get what you're saying. Even in Batman Begins, she wasn't like the most. She didn't really interest me that much. She just seemed like a character that was supposed to like help Bruce's arc or something like that. Like she was just there just to complement what he was going through. Sort of similar in the Dark Knight as well. I mean, even down to the recasting, which I actually prefer Maggie Gyllenhaal over Katie Holmes. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is able to give the character a little bit more layers. Not exactly sure what those are, but just something about her presence on screen just feels like an actual character to me rather than Katie Holmes. But I don't know. Just when she dies in the movie, I almost feel more for Harvey Dent than I do for her when she dies.
Yeah.
When she dies, it's like I'm not sitting there going, "Oh no, Rachel died." I'm sitting there going, "Oh no, Harvey Dent, lost Rachel." Which maybe that was the point. I'm not sure. I'd have to rewatch it again. But yeah, the character of Rachel, just all in all, was always kind of the weakest character in all three of these movies. like when you think of the Dark Knight trilogy, you think of Batman and Joker and Alfred and Lucius and even Ra's al Ghul and Bane and blah blah blah. But I don't think anyone really thinks of Rachel.
No, same. I feel like there is some points that I really like. For example, in the ending of Batman Begins, which I'm not going to go too much into, but when she says that the character, when she more or less just says right out that you're not Bruce Wayne, you are Batman, your Bruce Wayne persona is not you, and the person I fell in love with, he's not here. He's gone, and he might come back when Batman doesn't need him. And then later on in the Dark Knight, that it is Bruce, and or like what she's saying. She's saying more or less that Batman doesn't have to go away when the city doesn't need him. He will go away when Bruce doesn't need him, because obviously Bruce uses this to go away from himself a little bit, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And his depression and anxiety and all that shit, really.
Well, it's kind of like what Luke was saying earlier, whereas Christopher Nolan made the Bruce Wayne and Batman dynamic a little bit different than it ever has been before, because in these movies, Batman is sort of like an addictive drug that Bruce Wayne is taking, and the whole trilogy is leading up to him not needing it anymore. And there are some fans that don't really like that, and there are some fans that think it's a really interesting take on this character. It's a realistic take. It's unique, and I would have to agree with that side. I think it's something that I didn't think would work in a Batman script, but it does, and I think it's just because of how well it's played in these movies. But usually, like, Batman and Bruce Wayne are able to like coexist together, whereas I don't feel like this Bruce Wayne coexists with Batman. It's almost like Batman is the thing that he needs to break free from in order to move on, which I think is an interesting take. I think it's always spoken to me, and I think there's a place for it in the Batman mythos history.
Totally agree. I do.
Yeah, it's a different take. I mean, I think that's one of the main reasons why a lot of fans really kind of turn their noses up at the Christian Bale take. But I think if they just rewatched it one more time with that in mind, I think they'll probably be able to get behind it.
Yeah.
I think.
I think something else Christopher Nolan does is basically like the other films. They never included they included a bit like with Batman the Animated Series, Rupert Thorne, a bit of the actual gangster side, but you just completely put that in it because even though like there are the actual supervillains, it's more filled with the gangs and everything, like Falcone and everything. There's less supervillains and more of that all the time, which is something that he included in it a lot more than anything else has before. And even films with Batman in it now, they still don't like the DCEU hasn't even brought any gangsters into it. Like, I'm surprised they've not even mentioned Falcone, but no, they just never have.
Nah, they've only mentioned like Black Mask, I think, which is
Yeah.
a shame.
I think it's because those movies are just so fantastical and over the top. Like, they're more focused on wanting to do like the big supervillains with the big explosions and this and that. But Nolan obviously saw, like, probably took a look at this script and said, okay, obviously the Joker's going to be in this. He's the biggest Batman villain, but I don't want him in it too much. So what else can I put in to make this just as compelling? Well, I can put in the gangster side of it, like I did in Batman Begins, because you don't take out the supervillains first. You're going to take out the mob first, because they're the people that run the crime show. So he was able to bring that into the script very well and make us care about that side of things. And then when the Joker comes in, it's like, oh yeah, and we also have supervillains. So it's almost like a win-win situation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I also feel like, I kind of liked how the Joker became an unintentional Dark Knight for Gotham. Like, sure, it wasn't his intentions, but he did it anyway. From the beginning, it kind of was to, remove the mob. But then when he met Batman, he just changed course a bit because they complete each other. But he became more or less an unintentional Dark Knight. So I love how that makes a pretty cool, open thinking when it comes to the title of the movie, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's people have their favorite Nolan movies, their favorite superhero movies. This one is my favorite Nolan movie, just for basically all the reasons we've just said. It's iconic. It's epic. It's a personal story that it's smaller story that builds and builds and builds, and it doesn't waste your time from beginning to end. You're just sucked into the movie. I would consider it a classic by today's standards. It's almost 20 years old, and people are still talking about it. It still has yet to be beaten for the best superhero movie spot, in my opinion. I think it's still the best.
Yeah.
You can have your own personal favorites. I get it, but this movie still has its crown, and it rightfully so has its crown. And I don't think it's gonna be forgotten for another 20 years.
Me neither. I think it takes the cake, to be honest. I really do.
It's always this one and Batman: Mask of the Phantasm for me that just are always
I haven't
flipped
seen
back
that
and
one
forth.
yet. I haven't.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
movie that's a movie that you guys really should watch. If you're a fan of the animated series, it's basically an hour and a half animated series episode.
Oh, I love that.
It's
I think I
fantastic.
saw the Mr. Freeze one, the Mr. Freeze Batman the animated movie, but that's about it.
Oh yeah, the version the Batman and Robin movie that's better than the actual Batman and Robin movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that one's also really good too. But Mask of the Phantasm definitely has always given The Dark Knight a run for its money for me when it comes to the best. But they're both for me the best Batman movies and two of the best superhero movies. So
Yeah.
yeah, both fantastic.
Perfect. Or do we have anything more to bring up?
Well, like no other film used Lucius Fox. Like Batman 1989, it's good. I'm not hating on it, but
Yeah,
the Batman suit just kind of appeared. It just wasn't explained how we got it. And then
sure.
with Dark Knight trilogy, Lucius built it with all the gadgets and everything that Wayne Tech already makes for the military and stuff. Like it's not just well, I have this line around the back. No, this was made for soldiers, but it's just they don't think every soldier's life is worth like what was it, like 150 grand or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he gave that to Batman, and it's not just something that was like, oh, I just made this out of plastic.
Yeah. That's
right,
something I
right.
like too. How instead of, yeah, because there is many different, many different times where Batman is, this genius and entrepreneur. How do you pronounce it? Entrepreneur? No.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Yeah,
entrepreneur. And he's just all these different things. He's a great detective also. He knows gymnastics. And in a realistic world, I don't think that something a person would be able to manage during one lifetime, really. So
yeah,
that's why I kind of enjoyed that Lucius Fox has such a big part of this because he kind of more or less teaches Batman or Bruce how he's supposed to use his gadgets as well. Like, yeah, you can use this. This is Tumblr. This is how you use it. This is the bat suit. It manages bullets. It manages. He kind of learns him about his own tech, and he creates some of it by his own. Like the batarangs and stuff. But when it
Yeah.
comes more
right.
technical, it's Lucius Fox who's behind it, which I really like.
Yeah, it also humanizes the Bruce Wayne character a little bit more too. Like if he
Yeah.
was just good at everything and he could just, you know, uh, build his own suits by himself, build his own equipment, build his own cape. he would become a little bit like, okay, this person's great at everything. Why should I care about him? But the fact that he is still Bruce Wayne, but there are still things that he himself can learn from other people, from his co-workers like Jim Gordon or Lucius Fox, I think it really humanized him more
Yeah, and
in a way.
Alfred as well, I'd say.
Alfred as well. Yes, he learns a lot of moral values from Alfred throughout all the movies. Alfred is always prepared with a speech.
Really.
In every movie.
He's a poet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I also think that's going to be like the same reason the Batman with Robert Pattinson is going to be so good, because it's not just going to be the generic action movie. The Riddler, from the trailer, you can already see there's going to be mind games, and it's not just punch, like,
Exactly.
gun battle. No, it's going down, I am a detective, I will solve this, but he's playing mind games on me, sort of thing.
Well, those are the best stories for Batman. The smaller, more gritty, realistic stories where he's in the trenches and it's dark and he's a detective and he's a brawler and Gotham shit and blah blah blah. Usually when Batman starts fighting, aliens and stuff like that, that gets a little wonky for me. Like I'm not a fan of Batman from that end, but the more dark and gritty it is and grounded and humanizing, that's the humanity in Batman is what really, anything psychological is what I love.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, when he starts battling Darkseid in his hell bat suit, that gets a little, I don't know. That's not what I love in Batman.
I mean, like, I like that, but more or less when he's fighting him with the Justice League, like it's more or less of a Batman movie, and it's now a Justice League movie when it gets to they're fighting in space with a group of heroes.
For sure, yeah. There's a place for it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of more things to speak of here.
Yeah,
I think we brought up so much.
Yeah, we definitely had a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah.
It's a big movie. It's a
Really
great movie.
It is.
Well, I mean, like, I know that I say this about a lot of things, but like, other movies didn't use this much. It was the GCPD. They're just kind of there in other movies. Whereas in The Dark Knight, no, they are characters. They built, like, police officers aren't just, they're generic, they're there. No, he built, like, specific characters for the police. Like, obviously Jim Gordon was always a character, but he's also got, like, his officers. I can't remember the girl's name in it, but she does play a big role in it and everything.
Like Ramirez, yeah.
Yeah.
You can really see how I kind of like how much you can see in Gordon, how much he cares about us officers as well. And when I think, mostly I think of this one scene where he says, "You two, you go with me," and then they drive in the car and they take this person who Joker says, "If he isn't dead in an hour, I'm going to blow up a hospital," or whatever, and he says, I'll have to take your gun. And he answers, "Just because I have a wife in the hospital?" Yeah, that's exactly the reason. It humanizes the cops as well, which I also enjoy very much, because it feels realistic. Really.
Right. Like Batman actually works directly with the GCPD, and there are some people that hate him, but there are some people that respect him, and I think that just creates really good conflict within the heroes, and kind of puts a gray area in, okay, well, what is good and bad, and what do the characters believe is good and bad. It's not just here's Batman and here's the Joker, and good and evil are so clearly defined. That's not the case in this movie, and that's not the case in the trilogy, and I think that's just what makes it more interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Like in the DCEU, you've never seen Commissioner Gordon outside of the rooftop next to the bat signal. Like he is not anywhere to be seen apart from on that rooftop. It's just he's there, he pushes a button and tells them things, which is another thing why I think the Batman's gonna be so good, because you see Jim Gordon there, like, working with Batman instead of just like giving him stuff, basically.
Yeah, he also already got his own, spin-off series with Jeffrey
He's got a
Wright.
show coming. Yeah,
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I've just
it's
watched
gonna be
some
great.
Westworld scenes of Jeffrey Wright. He seems amazing.
He's a great actor.
Mwah.
Yeah, he's a really great actor.
Gotham was such a hit because it was less about Bruce Wayne and more about the GCPD and everything and what they did before Batman.
I love that show as well, and I think they made
Yeah.
a great portrayal of James Gordon, and I also loved Harvey Dent very much in that one.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Hopefully, we can get another trailer soon here for the Batman movie because I want to see more of that world. I want to see more of what I'm going to get into because we're going back to a realistic Batman, and that's what I prefer. That's what I've always enjoyed.
To make a video with you guys, like just discussing theories we got about the show as well, or not the show, the movie, and also about Matt Reeves' work, because he's also, he also works very practical, because we've seen on-set pictures where they've literally built up the entire city of Gotham with just like with like they do in old theaters, more or less, with this little, like, what do you say? Fuck, I can't find the words really. But when the buildings are really small or very.
Oh, like models, like.
Yeah, models of buildings that aren't thick, real buildings, but just
Oh, kind of like the front of it.
Yeah.
They built like the front of it, but there's no back to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just discuss that. That would be really funny, I think, because there's so much to go into, really. And
I definitely have my theories. Yeah, I definitely have my theories of what I think we could see in the film. I definitely have theories for sure.
Well, I mean, like, there's a theory about the Dark Knight that I saw, which is actually quite good. It's basically the Heath Ledger Joker origin story, and it's like, in the film he says, nobody cares if 100 soldiers die, but if one mayor dies, everyone goes crazy, or something like that. And then it's like he got the scars because his group of soldiers, like people saying he's a veteran, his group of soldiers got gassed, and he got tons of scars from the injuries, and the gas has mentally just destroyed him. And then on his return to Gotham City, nobody cares because he was the only survivor, and no one sent him help, and nobody cared about him, even though he fought so hard to get there for freedom and then to get back. And then that's a theory that I think it could be true, but
interesting. Yeah.
at the same time, I don't think Nolan actually intentionally made an origin for him.
Nah, same. I
for
feel
sure.
like
Yeah.
I think there's a little truth in every little story he tells. I think it tells 2 or 3 different versions of it, but I think none of them are true, but at the same time they are very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of them are true, but none of them are fake either. And I think that's what's really scary about whenever he tells that story. And it's like the first time he tells it, it's almost like the first time you watch the movie, you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I know where this character comes from now. Like, I guess I know his origin story. It's kind of like not as scary. But then he tells the story again to Rachel Dawes, and it's a completely different story. You're like, holy shit, I don't know anything about this character right now, and it just makes it so much more scary to me.
Yeah, I feel like this is something that the Killing Joke does as well, because we get an entire backstory to it, and then we get the Joker saying, sometimes I remember it one way, sometimes another. So this is just one version of his origin story. I think that works very well with the Joker movie too. That everything, we don't know what we're seeing is true. We don't know what's fake, what's true. We have no idea. We're just watching it and enjoying it, more or less. And I think that's how the Joker should be.
Exactly.
When it surrounded his origin, of course.
Exactly.
I mean, like, this is no, sorry.
You go.
Oh,
no, go ahead. I was just agreeing with him.
This is more on topic of the Killing Joke, but have you read the comic series, The Three Jokers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like that was sort of the sequel to it, basically saying how what you saw in the Killing Joke was Joker's side of it. In fact, his wife is not dead. You see her in the end of it. She thought Arthur was going crazy before he fell into that vat of acid. So she went
Yeah.
into the witness protection program, and the police officer basically told him at the pub, no, she died. Whereas in reality, she just got her name changed, and then Batman actually goes to see the Fleck family, but they're not called the Flecks anymore because they changed the name to get away from him, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, Three Jokers definitely, you know,
I still
added a
remember
lot,
reading the end of that,
whether
and I was
people
like,
like it or
holy
not.
crap.
Right.
Should we sum it up, maybe?
Yeah?
Because
Yeah,
now we've
sure.
done a 50 long minutes review.
Perfect.
But that's a good length. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that
Very
as
good.
well.
Yeah. But if we're supposed to summarize it and maybe give a rating by our own from 0 to 10, and
I'd probably give it a 10. Dark Knight, 10 out of 10.
I think I'll give it a 9 out of 10 because I think that like there's one thing I don't dislike really, but I think that the pacing is very quick in the movie.
Sure.
And I mean, no movie is perfect. There will always be a
Yeah.
little bit of flaws, but this is a really this is probably my favorite movie of all time, and together with a few others. And it's a movie I can rewatch how many times without getting sick of it, and that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, one of my favorite films as well. It's always been one of my favorites since I saw it. It gave me a new, like, added to my love for the character and the world that he lives in, more so than I had before. I would also give it a 9, solely based on the fact that I like the world building a little bit better in Batman Begins than in The Dark Knight. And the Rachel Dawes character isn't the most interesting to me, but everything else surrounding those two things are just very well done. It's a very well made film, one of the best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said earlier, he didn't want to make a superhero film. He just wanted to make a film, which is definitely something that he succeeded in. Everyone walks away not saying that was a good superhero film. Everyone walks away basically saying that was a great film.
100%. Even
Yeah.
people that absolutely hate superhero movies, there are
Mhm.
people out there that absolutely hate them, always say, but I do love The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And I think that right there just shows you how influential The Dark Knight was and is.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
This was a great review. I'm just going
Yeah,
to
it was
say
really great.
thank you all for thank you all for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to Luke and Brett for being here. Follow them on Instagram. If they want their Instagram names, they will be at their pictures right now. If not, they will not be there. Leave some feedback in the comments and your thoughts on The Dark Knight, and I hope we will see you in our next video. Thanks. If you want your stop